I watched My Lady Jane, and here is what I thought. Okay, guys, I am so excited to talk about this show. So, My Lady Jane, if you haven't heard about it, it is a historical fiction, and it's loosely based on the story of Lady Jane Grey. So, in the show, Jane is forced to marry Guilford Dudley to help her family's financial situation. Jane is a rebel. She's an independent girly, and she does not want to belong or be tied to a husband and belong to a man. And she is very against this marriage and tries everything to get out of it. But then her mother says, if you don't marry, I'll make your sister marry someone even worse. So Jane decides to save her sister from marrying someone worse than who she's set to be married to. She goes through with it. So she believes she is marrying the son who is very, very rude. She kind of had a brief run-in with him, and when she met him, she was like, no, I do not want to be married to this man. But now she's walking down the aisle. So that is who she believes she's marrying. But as she is walking down the aisle, she finds out she's marrying the other son. And he also happens to be the handsome stranger that she met at a bar a few days ago. So when they both get to the altar, they are very surprised to see each other and find out that they'll be marrying each other. Shortly after the wedding, Jane learns that her cousin, King Edward, is dead and that she is now queen. So with her new role, she wants to make a change, but not everyone is on the same side as Jane. So she gets met with a lot of conflict. And that is where our story begins. So that's just a brief synopsis, but this show has romance, it has a little bit of fantasy as well, and even some comedy. So if you haven't already seen My Lady Jane, definitely go check it out. But if you have, or if you don't really care about spoilers, let us continue, because we are now getting into spoiler territory. So I don't know about you, but I love a period drama. And this show gave me everything I needed, and it even gave me things I didn't know that I needed. So when I first heard about My Lady Jane, I think it was just in passing. Maybe I saw an ad for it, but I wasn't really too interested. I saw it was a period drama, and I was like, oh, I typically like period dramas. I had to look up the trailer because I hadn't really seen it. Looked up the trailer, and it just didn't seem something that I would like. From the trailer, the comedy that was shown reminded me of The Great, but unfortunately, I could never get into The Great. I just never enjoyed it or the type of comedy that was in that show. So I just thought, My Lady Jane is not for me. That's okay. It's just the type of show I probably won't enjoy. But then TikTok did its thing. I kept seeing clips of this show on TikTok, on my For You page continuously. And I was like, what is this show that they're showing me? And I found out it was My Lady Jane. But the scene that I kept seeing over and over again was the wedding scene. And it was when she was walking down the aisle and realizes that she's marrying Guilford. And when I saw that and all the edits people made, I was sold. I was like, I need to see this show immediately. This show did so many things and combined everything so flawlessly. So the fantasy aspect of this show, there are people that are Ethians, and the Ethians are people that can transform into an animal. And they are born with this, and people don't really know that they have this ability until they're like a teen and hit puberty. And a lot of people that aren't Ethians see Ethians as dangerous, and they are trying to get rid of them and kind of make them go extinct. So currently there is a battle against the Ethians and people that want to protect them against people who want to kind of get rid of Ethians. So that's where this fantasy part comes in. But let's get into the comedy. The comedy for me was done so well. And if you see my past other videos, comedies can be a hit or miss. Either I love it or I just hate it. But this one, it did really well. I really enjoyed it. One of my favorite scenes that I was laughing so hard was when the Dudley brother, and I believe his name is Stan, he tries serenading Lady Frances Grey. And I was dying because she came out there so fast and shot him down. She was like, no. And she's like, be quiet. We're not getting married. But I was absolutely loving it. Another scene I really liked was when Lady Frances Grey was giving a toast at this dinner that everyone was having, and she basically was thanking herself because she was the only mother there, and that was hilarious. I was like, this woman will not ever forget to sing her praises, and I was just loving every minute of both of those scenes. And that is just a sample of some of the scenes that we had within the show. There were a lot of other good moments and a lot of different cast members that had comedic moments as well, and it had me smiling and just loving this show even more. But let's get to my favorite parts of the show, and that was the romance. And we're looking at the romance between Jane and Guilford. I love them so much. The chemistry between them, so good, so good. It was amazing. These two actors did such a great job, and whoever casted them, bravo, bravo, because oh my god, it was seeping through the screen, the chemistry that they had. Okay, let's go a little bit more into them. So Jane is told she has to get married. So what does she do? She tries to keep it from happening. She kind of follows her mother to meet Lord Dudley, and in doing that, she meets his son, and she automatically thinks that this is the man that she would marry. Like, this is what the audience is thinking as well. And he is currently just not the best person. It's kind of dull, and like, no, she does not want to go through this. He does not seem like a nice man. So she tries to run away, and she ends up kind of hiding out in a tavern for a little bit. And this is where she meets a very handsome stranger. And they do a little bickering back and forth, but you definitely see that there is immediate attraction between them. As they're doing their little back and forth, kind of some troublesome incidents happen within this tavern, and they kind of end up getting separated and going their separate ways. And Jane is found by her mother, and her mother brings her back to get married. So at this point in the show, it was sad because she finds this man that she's attracted to, but she turns out to be engaged to and has to marry someone else. And I'm just so sad for her in this moment. I'm like, poor Jane, like, you know, she doesn't want to get married, and then she finds this other guy so she has some type of attraction with, and she can't even marry him because she's about to walk down the aisle to another man. When we get to the wedding, she is walking down the aisle, and as she's walking, we see the guy who she thinks he's marrying standing next to his father. And I love this next part and how this show did it. So she's walking up to the front of the aisle to the altar. As she's doing that, the man she thinks she's going to marry and his father step away to reveal the man she will actually marry, which is Guilford Dudley. And when they did that in the show, I was like, so good, so smart. It was done so well, and my jaw literally dropped. And when she sees who she is actually marrying, it is actually the handsome stranger she met in the tavern. And as soon as they see each other, they're both shocked. And then they realize, oh, we're actually going to be marrying each other. This is the girl, this is the guy that I saw, had those sparks with. We're actually going to get married. So there is some enemies to lovers aspect of their relationship as well. Obviously, they are both attracted to each other, but they just don't like the other person, and neither one of them really want to be married. So after their wedding night, Jane kind of goes looking for Guilford. It turns out that Guilford is Ethian, and he changes into a horse. But usually as an Ethian, you can change when you want. So you can change to a human when you want to be, and you can change into your animal when you want to be. But not Guilford. For some reason, he can only change into a horse by day, and then he changes back into a human at night, and he cannot control it. So other being newlyweds, she is dealing with this new secret she found out about him. And if she does expose him, she could be put to death as well. Jane doesn't want to be married, as I mentioned before, but Guilford kind of makes a deal with her, and he says he will divorce her if she helps cure him of being an Ethian. And she says yes to this deal. He knows that she's a smart girl, and she reads and she kind of practices medicine, so he thinks she's his best bet to be able to find a cure and no longer be Ethian. But as the season goes on, their feelings for each other begin to grow. And eventually, Jane decides that she doesn't want this divorce anymore. And then when they do that, they decide to consummate their marriage. Unfortunately, in the end, Jane is overthrown and the crown now belongs to Mary. And they end up finding out the truth about Guilford. So Jane and Guilford are both sentenced to death. These scenes towards the end really got me. It was so sad just to see that they were both kind of like locked up in their own cells and they couldn't see each other. They didn't know how each other were. And it was just really sad. And they were both like, you know, if I gotta go, at least they'll see each other one last time. And that was so sad. So in the final scenes, Jane is going to be beheaded and Guilford is like kind of tied up against this like burning wood and hay, or they're kind of see each other about to be the ends of their lives. But what do you know, the Ethians come and help save Jane because she was pushing for peace and trying to get the crown to stop hurting Ethians. So they come to help her escape from her death. But in that moment, Jane runs over to Guilford and tries to free him. And she's having a very, very hard time. She's like, I can't do it. I can't cut these ropes. I can't set you free. And he is like, go, just save yourself. And she was like, no, I won't leave you. She's like, I just want to be here with you. And I was literally like, Jaina, but it was like really sweet and very sad. And they're like, you know, if this is the end, we're going to go together. And at that point, they were confessing their love to each other. I was literally crying, guys, so bad, because it was just so beautiful and so sad. In the midst of all this chaos, they are still able to have this very intimate moment with each other. But something happens when Jane says, I love you to Guilford. He turns into the horse, his Ethian self, and it's not daylight where he's able to control the change, kind of. And eventually he's able to break free, and they're able to escape and run off together. And honestly, just their whole relationship throughout this entire show was just so beautiful. I was loving every single minute, from when they hate each other and they're bickering and fighting to when they finally confess their feelings for each other. It was just all beautiful, and I absolutely loved it. I really needed this show, and I really needed it at the time that it came out. Like a lot of people, they found this after Bridgerton, and after Bridgerton not being what I had hoped it would be, this was the perfect show to follow up with that. Everything that I wanted from Bridgerton, this show gave me, and I am so happy that it did, and that I decided to take a chance and watch this show. Other than the main romance, I loved seeing the Grey sisters together. Didn't have a whole bunch of scenes, but there were certain moments where they were sticking up for each other, having each other's back, and I really loved those moments that they had with each other. And there was this other Ethian called Archer, I believe, and I really liked his character. And there were very subtle moments, at least to me, where him and Jane kind of had moments, and I was like, is there something more there, like some type of attraction? It was subtle, but it was there. And don't get me wrong, I love Jane and Guilford. Like, I want them to be endgame. But Archer, I would love to see like where that would go, if there's any attraction between him and Jane. There's a little spark there. So if you didn't guess already, after seeing this show, I gave it 5 stars. It was just so good. I loved everything about it. I enjoyed the entire season. I enjoyed the entire cast. I just think each person was very important to moving the story along throughout the season. Like each role, each cast member, they were there for a specific reason, and it wasn't like they just took up space or wasted time. Everything was very intentional. And as I mentioned before, the show just isn't romance. It also has fantasy, and it also does have comedy. And I think because of those things, bring in a variety of different types of audience, and a very broad audience as well, than a show that would just have romance or is just a period show, like a show like Bridgerton. I think because this show has so many other things, it can appeal to so many different people. So if you have seen My Lady Jane, what did you think? And after watching the show, I definitely have a few recommendations, if you have seen this, of other things you might enjoy. So if you like the comedy of the show, I would actually recommend The Great. Even though I didn't like The Great, I know a lot of people liked it, and some parts of the show did remind me of that show, The Great. So if you like that comedy style, I would definitely give that show a chance. I believe that one's on Hulu. If you like a period piece like this one, I would say go check out The Artful Dodger. I really enjoyed this show, and it has a strong female character. The characters in that show are both kind of attracted to each other's intelligence. So if you like that part of Jane and Guilford's relationship, I would definitely go check out Artful Dodger. Also, if you like a period drama, I would check out Reign, because this show kind of reminded me a little bit of Reign. It also has the historical fiction based on a character. It also has the arranged marriage aspect as well. So I think if you like My Lady Jane, maybe go check out Reign. It is another period piece that's kind of similar and reminded me of this. If you liked the romance in this season, I would actually suggest Maxton Hall. And that is another show that's on Prime. It also has the enemies to lovers, but this show particularly, it was like a TV show that was written for book lovers. And that may be one reason, because it came from a book. But Maxton Hall also is based off a book, and it gave me the same feeling like a show written for book lovers of romance book lovers. So if you enjoyed the romance in this show, I would go check out Maxton Hall. It is a show kind of about like rich boy, kind of like poor girl, both going to a private school. They're enemies to lovers. So definitely go check that out. I think you'll like it. And it has been renewed for a second season. Okay, so those were the shows, but I also have some movies that I would recommend if you like this show. So I had watched some interviews that the cast had done, and a lot of them said that Knight's Tale was some of the inspiration they took for this show as well. And I would 100% agree. Like, as soon as they said that, I could see the Knight's Tale, like the influence within the show. And it does this kind of the same thing. It's a period drama, but it has that modern music in it and the same type of genre music as well. So if you liked that, I would check out The Knight's Tale. And I also on social media saw a lot of people recommending Ella Enchanted for this show. And so I will also include that and agree. So if you liked like the fantasy aspect, the silly and the funness of this show, I would definitely go check out Ella Enchanted. It kind of gives that same thing. It's like a fairy tale, but it has like that fun and silliness that this show also has. So yeah, I know that was a lot of recommendations, but with a show that has so many things, it just reminded me of a lot of different shows and movies that kind of felt like certain parts throughout the show. So if you liked My Lady Jane, definitely go check out one of those things I recommended. I do think you'll enjoy at least one of them. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment, anything you want regarding this show. I loved it, so I'd love to hear other people's opinions, and maybe things I didn't mention, leave them in the comments below. I will leave my website link down below as well. Feel free to check that out. It is andtheshowmustgoon.com. Follow me on all my socials at @ATS_MGO on all platforms. But I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, week, month, and hopefully a good rest of your year. And until next time, bye.